welcome to the second episode of the Comicsbound podcast. I'm Stephanie Cooke, and I am joined by Mr. Lan Pitts.
Happy Tuesday, everyone. Stephanie, how are you?
I am delightful. Thank you for asking.
Delightful.
Yeah, delightful. I did a course today for 3D certification. For 3D printing certification, I guess I should say.
You're pretty certified as three-dimensional already.
Yeah. So I'm told. So that was fun. I took the day off of work and went to the Toronto Reference Library, which is where they hold TCAF. And I learned some things along with some very, let's say, simple people who really didn't understand anything. It's probably my own fault for taking a free course at a library. But yeah, it was fun. It was good. I am very ready to make things. Literally the first step in becoming certified was learning the things that we are not allowed to print at the library. The first thing was no weapons. And then the second thing was, and my very, not very old, older Asian instructor kind of mumbled under his breath. He's like, no things. And we were like, what? What are you saying, Tim? And he's like, no things. And we're like, Tim, we can't hear you. And I'm literally in the front row. And he's like, no sexy things. So, all right. No dildo making at the library. That is,
Are those sexy?
I guess. Or, I don't know what else is sexy that you could make with a 3D printer. My imagination is not running wild. I have no idea, but that was the first thing. No weapons and no sexy things, as they put it. So, all of my dreams are crushed.
Not all of them.
Yeah, just most of them.
Just the sexy.
So that's a thing. But other than that, I want to just make. I have really big aspirations for this. I literally have no idea how to do things, and the examples he's showing us basically are really simple beams and bookmarks, and I'm like, how do I make spaceships from my favorite sci-fi things? Can we please get to that part of the tutorial? He's like, well, we have a design class. I'm like, but I want to know now. He did not teach me. The guy behind me kept asking every 3 seconds what the thing was, asking the exact same question that we had just summed up. He's like, okay, I have a question that I don't think we've gone over yet. What sort of materials do we use? And we're like, we literally just talked about this for 15 minutes. So I love people. I'm a people person, really.
You are.
Yeah.
You are people, that is for sure.
Yeah. So I'm told. But what about you? What'd you get up to this weekend? Anything exciting?
Yeah. So much. I'm trying to remember because it
so much.
I still can't believe it's just Tuesday because it feels like I've lived a week in just the past couple of days. I rearranged I did a lot of personal house stuff. I started purging some of my comics and donating to libraries and where was I this weekend? Oh, my God. Oh, I went to D.C. this weekend, and I don't know. I'm trying to remember. This is so dumb. This is the beginning of the end, I'm afraid. I just, I felt so bad today and just so exhausted. I got back in around about 11:30, and then I just kind of slept for like 3 hours. So
that's cool.
I got up around like 4 o'clock and was like, "Oh, I'm behind on everything. Excuse me." so yeah, I know I went out. I did interview. I went to DC. I interviewed Tom King, who will be writing the new Batman. We had pizza and chatted for like 2.5 hours. That won't be a 2.5 hour long interview, but we did just end up hanging out and talking comics, life, relationships, what we want out of comics as a whole. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I did a lot of coverage of China's death. And yeah, that was pretty much a lot of consumption of my weekend, and still did more stuff today because her manager announced that he's donating her brain to science.
Okay.
Or CTE research. So that, I guess that is a really morbid segue into today's show.
That's okay. I forgot, like, going back onto the comics train thing and not the brain death thing. Mm-hmm. I got. Were you at Emerald City? I can't recall if you went this year.
No, I bailed at the last second.
I wasn't there.
Yeah.
Either, but a girl that I met last year, my name friend Stephanie, I had a parcel in the mail that I had to go pick up, and I was like, I couldn't remember ordering anything, and I was like, what is in the mail? And I'd forgotten that Stephanie, other Stephanie, not me, had sent me one of the Emerald City giant lion cats.
Oh.
Yeah, so I just unpacked him, and he's sitting he's sitting here at my desk. I don't know if he does anything, really. Does he do anything? Does he say anything? I feel like he doesn't say anything. Oh, I feel like he might be broken. I feel like that's not lying.
Well, you have to remember also, Lion Cat is a girl.
But that does not sound like anything.
She's saying lying in her hissing voice.
Is she?
That is what I heard that through this, so yes. What else would she be saying?
I don't know. It kind of just sounded like... like...
I had Passover was this past weekend. That was something too. That's why it was just a lot of exhausting things this weekend.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah, I had a really good pre-Passover meal Thursday, and then a small Seder, and watched Prince of Egypt because that's what you do.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's why I feel, because everything was just so exhausting. Anyways,
better than watching Gods of Egypt.
Which I still kind of like.
I'm not judging. I'm judging a little bit, but like not a lot. Like we can still be friends, but like.
Look, if Willem Dafoe can play Jesus.
Sure. I went to again. I spoke about this comic on our inaugural show. Mm-hmm. Wow, why did I say that like that? Anyways,
what's up with you and doing accents today?
I don't know. You guys missed Leprechaun accent. Like
I don't know if they missed it.
I feel like they did. I feel like it's an experience. But I briefly talked about the first half of the comic Joyride last week, and I went to the launch party for it in Toronto at Page and Panel. Where Marcus Toe and Nimit Malavia, who did one of the variants, was there, and Irma Navilla, who did the colors. They were all there and hanging out and signing issues of the comic. So it was really cool. I hung out with them for a little bit, talked about the book. But I mean, to be honest, I didn't talk about the book. I told them horrific dating stories. Because that's what I do. I show up at places and then I'm just like, let me tell you about how ridiculous my life is. So yeah, that was good. And we wound up, like, I read the rest of the comic by then, which by the way is very good, Lan. It's very good. It's like Prison Break meets Doctor Who meets Attack on Titan.
Yeah, Joyride. Yeah.
Yeah.
I went through my comps.
It's so good, right?
Yeah.
I loved it. I
got a big package from DC again today, and I was like, oh man, another pile of maybe one day.
Maybe one day. But yeah, no, it was really, really cool. I was super stoked to get to talk to them about it. And, you know, I don't know, like, it's like one of those things where you go to things and you're like, I don't know what I can say and what I cannot say. But I will just leave it at it. It's very good, and you should definitely check it out because the first issue is a whole lot of fun. We are not bogged down with nearly as much news as we were last week. So, you know, I don't want to dive into it too much because I don't think Lana's too much to say on it. And I addressed this pretty heavily, but obviously the Eddie Berganza sexual harassment allegations are a very big deal. But if you feel like you want to read up some feels on that, you can go through my Twitter. I definitely had some words. Yeah. I had more than 140 characters.
Yeah.
So I don't want to drag it out here. But it's obviously a big issue, which is why I did talk about it. Just we're going to talk about some other things like the cool new X-Men Apocalypse trailer.
Yeah.
Which Lan finally watched after figuring out the internet.
So, I don't know, because it seems like a lot of the repeated footage, a lot of different quotes. So definitely we saw some of the Mutant Fight Club. Yeah. Again, I have some issues with this movie already.
I already love it because Storm is not Halle Berry.
So I love it in some aspects, but going back to Mystique, for somebody who was so mutant and proud, we definitely see a lot of Jennifer Lawrence in this, and not Raven Darkholm.
I don't know. I felt like there was a lot of Mystique in this. No, I feel like you're full of lies.
No, I'm full of astute observations.
Astute.
Yes, look at and like how it's marketing compared to the past two. I don't even think she's in Mystique makeup this time around.
Yeah, she is. She totally is. And she's actually
on
wearing...
the movie poster. Let me finish. On the movie poster, whereas the past two, she's been in Mystique makeup. I don't even think she's in Mystique makeup on the movie poster this time around.
I don't know if I've seen the movie poster, to be honest.
There's several, but hold on. I'm looking it up.
But yeah, no. I'm like... I haven't been super stoked for Days of Future Past, and I wasn't really stoked for this either.
I was stoked for Days of Future Past because 70s X-Men is kind of bananas X-Men.
I mean, like... but, like, I don't know. These aren't my... I love the X-Men franchise, but, like, weirdly,
I'm not... No, she is not in Mystique makeup.
You're right.
It feels good.
I don't know. I don't know. Like, I think that the cast looks good for this, though. Like, I'm excited to see Oscar Isaac. I'm excited to see Sophie Turner. Mm-hmm. Who's the girl that's playing Storm? That's not Halle Berry, because she looks awesome.
Oh, that is a good question. Because everyone almost is coming back.
She looked so cool. I'm really excited. Let's see. X-Men Apocalypse. Wow, I'm sorry. I can't stop myself. Olivia Munn looked really cool as Psylocke.
Olivia Munn has looked cool as Psylocke. I really hate the gratuitous boob window in her costume.
I'm not a fan of her. Like, I'm just not on team Olivia Munn, but I really think
her name is
awesome.
Alexandra Shipp.
Yeah, of course, I like literally just found that as you find it. And no, she looks awesome. I love Mohawk Storm. She looked badass.
Well, yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. I'm stoked. And speaking of Sophie Turner, we both watched the Game of Thrones premiere, right?
You can definitely tell this was made by TV writers who didn't have to hit like any notes. The pacing was so great, and it actually gave some sort of sense of drama instead of it being like nonstop political. There were still like some politics involved, but yeah.
I don't want to like say spoilers or anything for people who haven't watched it yet, but I mean, I have mixed feelings about it. Like, part of me really liked the premiere. I really liked the stuff with, and again, I don't want to give anything away, but I liked the stuff with Brienne.
Oh yeah, no, that whole scene of her doing
that thing. Yeah. That was really
her and
cool.
Potdrick are like my favorite tag team.
Yeah, they're amazing. I love them. I really liked that, and then I don't know, like if there was a lot of like I enjoyed it, but I don't know if there was like a lot of really memorable moments for me outside of that. Like I feel like I thought that they were gonna do more with this opening episode, and it's not to say that it's bad. I just like there's things that I needs to happen, and they haven't.
I'm pretty sure, like, I don't know, because we're completely off books now, so
yeah,
it's up in the wind.
Do you? Oh, go ahead. I was gonna like change to ask if you watched Orphan Black.
No, and I hear like nonstop. My roommate is obsessed.
It's so good, Lan. And the first 2 episodes are on or have aired. They've aired now. Yeah. They're so good.
It's one of those things that I'm sure like I will get to eventually after I rewatch Pushing Daisies for the 8th.
Oh my God. That show is so good. I was talking about it today, weirdly.
I just got rewatching 30 Rock, so who knows?
I feel this pain. I was talking to my friend and like being like, have you seen this? He's like, dude, when do you have time to watch all this stuff? And I'm like, scratching my head. I'm like, I actually don't know. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know how I make time for all of this. But, yeah, there's a lot of cool things happening. I got caught up with The Flash last week, which I also have mixed feelings about. And Arrow, which I have mixed feelings about.
I dropped Arrow a while ago.
I feel like I'm done with it. I was kind of hate watching it.
I don't care anymore.
I was kind of like hate watching it after a certain point, and
Why
now
did you watch it.
Well, and now there's like a thing that happened in the last episode with a character, and I'm like, why would you do this? Anyways, it's
so we have a guest. We're going to chime him in a second.
Yeah,
because I'm glad we got like the comic and nerd stuff out of the way, because this conversation is about to be dominated by Wrestle Talk, and I'm really excited. And I want you to hold on, Stephanie, as hard as you can. I don't want you to get lost. I want you to hold my hand so you don't get lost in this.
Okay.
In this talk, and we're going to talk you through.
I super believe in you.
I know. So we're going to be joined here in a second by G. Brett Williams, who is one of the editors for the Kickstarter campaign, I guess, right now for Project From Parts Unknown, which is a comic prose wrestling anthology. It's pretty great, and we're going to have him come in a second. I want to cue him in, let him chime in right now.
Yeah.
And he can explain it more than I ever could. But Stephanie, you're also... You played a little Twitter game today, too.
I did. You can coordinate with Brett, and I'm going to lead into this with the game. So, Lan and I were talking, as we do, to kind of get all
or maybe
prepped.
do you chime him in?
Yeah, I could. Let's see.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we were prepping for the show, and I was like, I literally know nothing about wrestling. I don't know anything at all about it. And so Lan and I were kind of sitting around, and he's like, you're going to have fun. He's sending me clips of crazy wrestlers, and I'm just like, what is wrestling even? But I decided to play a game called, because Lan, again, kept sending me all these, like, amazing wrestler names. And so I told Twitter to send me a real wrestler and a fake wrestler. And I would have to decide which one was which. A lot of people...
There?
I am here. Can you guys hear me?
I hear the cleaning machine in the background, so I figured that was you.
Shit. I thought I was far enough away from it. I'm sorry.
No, that was fine. It was a good audio cue to let me know that you were around.
Can I curse on this podcast? Is that allowed?
Sure can.
Okay, that's good. Sometimes I can't help myself.
That's okay.
We just did your introduction, Brett. Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm great. It's a balmy 40 degrees in Chicago because it refuses to change seasons here. But
I don't know what that means in Canadian, but like I'm gonna guess since you're not happy about it, it's cold.
It's it's too cold for almost May. I'll say that.
Okay.
Stephanie, and you know what? I just had an epiphany. You're wearing a moose hat on your Skype icon.
I am.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's very Canadian of you. I like how you telegraphed that.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm like it's a fancy photo. I mean, I'm basically wearing my fanciest hat.
Exactly.
And I want everybody to know that.
So yeah, she was just talking about the game. I basically wanted to see if she wanted to play on Twitter, and people were submitting two wrestlers, one fake, one real.
Oh God!
And she can guess which one was real. So Stephanie, read off some of the list.
Okay. So it starts off. Pat Torf sent one in, and it's Dr. X and Grant Dynasty.
I don't even know if I can answer that one.
And like, I'm not going to Google these right now. So like, you guys are just going to tweet us when this goes up and tell me if I got this right or wrong.
Oh, I know the answer. That is
okay. Well,
great.
don't say it.
I won't.
Okay, so I'm going to say that the real one here is Grant Dynasty.
You would be wrong.
Oh!
Dr. X is a famous masked wrestler, I guess from like the 30s or 40s. He was like one of the most famous luchadors, like of all. I mean, but he was an American, but he still was like a masked wrestler in like the. No, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, like he was born in the 30s, so he's like in the 50s, I think.
Yeah, okay, that makes more sense now. I know. It was like he was in AWA for a while with Vergania and like all this other stuff. So no, Mr. X. I'm sorry, Dr. X.
Dr. X.
He went to Dr. Wrestling School.
There have been a few Dr. X's. It's one of those things with like the masked wrestlers where a lot of times there are various incarnations of certain masked wrestlers. So I think that the one, Lan, that you're thinking of that wrestled Vern Gagne is wrestled as Dr. X, but is actually the same guy that was the Destroyer.
Oh, okay.
I think. But I don't know for sure.
See, now I kind of want to look it up because just to like...
I was telling my great aunt about this. I went to lunch with her today, and I was like, I'm going to play a game on this show about wrestling. I don't know what possessed me to tell my aunt about this. She's like the same age as my grandmother. And I cannot remember what wrestler she said, but she was like, let me tell you a very famous wrestler, and if somebody asks you about this one, he's real. And I was like, okay, my great aunt knows more about wrestling than I do. Cool. Okay.
And a lot of people that you wouldn't expect know a whole lot about wrestling.
Yeah.
It's vaguely, I compare it to like, for years, and this may still be the case, the Eagles' greatest hits was like the greatest selling record of all time. But yet you couldn't meet anyone, other than your parents who would admit to owning the Eagles' greatest hits. Because it's such a maligned band and such a maligned record, and wrestling is a little bit like that, where like you don't always meet people who openly talk about their wrestling fandom, but it's $1 billion global industry, so someone is watching. A lot of someone's are watching.
I just want to go on the record right now. I didn't mean to plan it this way, but I'm already wearing my Dalton Castle shirt.
Oh,
so,
nice.
Yeah.
Who I watched a video of.
I made sure you watched Dalton Castle's debut. Yes.
Yeah.
I was there that night.
Were you?
I was in that he debuted his ROH debut because he had wrestled. Yeah, he had wrestled under a different name in Chikara a little bit.
Yeah,
but,
Ashley Remington.
Yeah, the yacht rock gimmick, which is also a phenomenal gimmick. But he wrestled. Yeah, he debuted at the Nashville Fairgrounds. I was there with a bunch of my friends, and I don't think that you can hear it on the TV taping, but my friend John famously yelled, "I want you inside me," as he came to the ring.
That is great. No, I was there too because that was also the same taping that Samoa Joe came up to ROH for like a hot second.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, no, that was a pretty good night. And it was also, I think, one of the last ROH appearances of Alberto El Patron.
Oh yeah. I got to see him wrestle as well. And I love Del
Stephanie,
Rio.
don't get lost. Don't get lost.
Don't get lost. Sorry.
Don't get lost.
I feel like you've seen the Fantastic Mr. Fox, right?
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
You know when his friend the possum, like his eyes glaze over and they start doing those little like round like things. I feel like I'm the possum right now. Like, I'm there.
You haven't resorted to busting out just like 20-year-old catchphrases yet.
You don't want to hear my rock impression?
I would love to hear your rock impression.
No, don't. You don't want that.
I don't want
that. No one wants that. I was trying to think of more catchphrases than that. Apparently, I just don't know much of anything. I watched wrestling once.
Was that the clip I showed you?
No, I watched it. I remember going over to my best friend's house when I was 13, and her brother really loved wrestling, and her brother and her parents were all sitting downstairs watching WWE, and I went and sat and watched it with them. And I remember it was so surreal. I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
And I grew up in a small town, so it wasn't a big thing for everyone to get in on. And I was so is this for real? What is this? And I'd always thought wrestling, I don't know, I guess I thought it was something like boxing. And
right.
I was just so baffled. I was like, is this acting? What's happening? I remember being so confuzzled by it, but I believe The Rock was there. Yeah.
Brett, before we get into your Kickstarter, what is your first wrestling memory?
Well, I'm Southern and I'm old. So,
where are you from? I didn't know that.
I'm from a small town in Tennessee, southern middle Tennessee, near Nashville.
Okay, now I hear your accent. Okay, I'm from Atlanta, south of Atlanta.
Okay, yeah.
So we grew up in NWA country, so this is going to be fun.
Exactly. Well, I grew up smack dab in the middle of kind of the
Jim Crockett promotion.
Jim Crockett and then Jarrett, in Memphis.
Right.
So my first wrestling event.
You also had some Lawler in there too, right? Because you had USWA.
Yeah, that would be the Memphis territory. So it was Lawler was on top there forever and was a booker and a partial owner with Jerry Jarrett. Mm-hmm. And now I can remember, I had an older brother and he was quite a bit older. So, when I was 7, 8 years old, I guess he would have been 15, 14 or 15. And so he and his friends were all just sort of young teenagers watching wrestling, when it was really popular in the 80s. And so I remember one time, I was kind of a nerd already and just kind of weird and socially awkward as a child. And I think that they were going to watch some wrestling event. I think it was a WCW Saturday night taping or something like that.
Okay.
And I can very distinctly remember sitting in my brother's friend's living room and all of them getting angry at me because I kept referring to Lex Luger as Lex Luthor because I had seen Superman movies at that point, and I thought that they were saying Lex Luthor, and it never did. I couldn't wrap my head around it.
Right.
And I don't, I don't remember everything that happened on that card. I just remember vaguely being just sort of immediately overwhelmed by it and like really excited by it and like curious. I was like asking a million questions about motivations and backstories and who was who and why were they doing what they were doing. And it just so happened that a couple of weeks later, like, cause Jarrett and Lawler were one of the last holdouts of the territories. They were one of the last territories to really give in to the McMahon pressure, and right. So they were still doing touring spot shows. And I actually got to see them in the Rotary Park Gymnasium in Lawrenceburg, Tennessee, where I grew up. And Jeff Jarrett wrestled the Dirty White Boy, Tony Anthony. And that is actually the story. That story inspired the Kickstarter that I'm here to talk about, because ultimately this all started as one short comic that my friend Jake Stanley and I were going to do about the moment that I realized I loved wrestling and how it never, I haven't really looked back since. There have been some, Lan, you've been a wrestling fan as long as I have, I'm sure.
I'll tell my first wrestling story in a minute, because I also noticed that since I'm hearing your accent, my accent's about to come out.
Oh yeah, it's going to get bad.
It's going to get great.
It never comes out unless I'm around other Southerners, and then it gets real bad.
Oh, I know. Trust me. Stephanie, you still with us?
What is happening? I'm just going to be in Canada, and I'm just going to say A lot.
I love Canadian wrestling, so that's not going to save you.
Is that a thing?
Oh, God, yes.
Actually, that's not.
Calgary.
I feel like Andy Belanger has like tried to convince me to go see like wrestling when I was like in Montreal, but I feel like that never happened. That never happened.
Andy
but the actual Canadian wrestling scene and its legacy with the Hart Dungeon, especially,
is that Bret Hart?
Yeah.
Oh, yay!
Yes, I know one thing. Oh, high five me. All right, carry on, everyone else. Talk about wrestling. My eyes are not spiraling.
Yeah, the Hart family is that is a huge legacy, and not just the Hart Dungeon, but just Canadian wrestling in general. I mean, there are a lot of great Canadian wrestlers that didn't go through the Hart Dungeon, like Rick Martel. I mean, there's even now in the WWE, two of the biggest stars are Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, who are both Canadian wrestlers. So I think Tyler Breeze is Canadian. There's still a lot of Canadian wrestlers. Canadian. A lot of the guys now are trained.
He looks Canadian.
I don't know.
Is he pasty?
He is. He's. Most wrestlers aren't allowed to be pasty. They have to tan, as is handed down on high from Lord Commander Vincent Kennedy McMahon. They all have to be very tan, because I guess it looks better on camera. Also, I think in the 80s it helped hide a lot of back knee from steroid use, but
yeah,
that's neither here nor there. Anyway, not to derail this, because I could talk about Canadian wrestling for 3 straight hours. So, Lan, yeah, you've probably wrestled. I mean, I've taken some breaks here and there. Some tragic things will happen, and you'll sometimes be like, "Oh God, I can't deal with this anymore," and walk away from it. But yeah, I've been watching consistently since.
Right. No, I've walked away from the weekly stuff, but still like keep it up with like dirt sheets or something. Yeah. 2002 to 2004, I was iffy with it just because I don't think the roster was really strong, and Triple H had like a reign of terror that rivaled Robespierre's. So I'll let the joke sink in. I thought that was funny, but I'll let that joke sink in for a minute. And so, but it's been a consistent since like I flirted with the new generation in the 90s, but then I kind of switched over to WCW. Mm-hmm. But so my first wrestling event, like I remember, was Starrcade 89 at the much beloved, now no longer there, Omni in Atlanta, Georgia, which it was awesome. the Iron Man tournament with Sting pinning Ric Flair. But I mean, everybody was there because they also had the tag team Iron Man tournament.
Yeah, that's the Future Shock tournament, right? Starcade 89?
You would be correct, sir. Yes, that was Starcade 89 Future Shock. Yes.
Yep. Yeah. I have warm memories of that. There's my mother, when she found out I liked wrestling, and I've lived in such a small town, but we had this little video store that it's still there. It's called Video Village, and they had they had the empty cassette tape, the cases sitting on wooden shelves, and you take like a tag to the register, and they would go in the back and get the tape for you.
We know how video, how VHS stores work. I remember.
My mom, I was sick one day, and my mom just went to the Video Village and brought home wrestling for me to watch, and one of them was Future Shock. It was Starcade 89, and it's been one of my 5 favorite pay-per-views of my entire life. So that's amazing that was your first show.
That was my first show. I was 6, so yeah. Well, so to give you some backstory, my mom knew Dusty Rhodes' girlfriend in college.
Oh.
So she knew Dusty and like Rick because, I mean, if you lived in the South and didn't know who Ric Flair was, please leave. Please leave. So one day her roommate's like, "Oh, Dusty wants you to commission something if you have the time to do it, because I mentioned how you sewed." And she's like, "Okay, sure. So what does he want?" And so Dusty actually came in and was like, "Okay, so here's what I want, baby." And just basically, like, all he really wanted was just a jean jacket with, like, the American flag on the back in sequins.
All he wanted. You
That's
just described
all he wanted.
The greatest jacket of all time.
So my mom spent, like, a couple of days just working on the jacket because he needed it for, like, a TV taping, and I'll be damned if Dusty Rhodes did not wear this jacket on TV.
That
my mom made. So, yeah.
You were just the coolest kid in the world at that point, right? I mean, you must have thought your mom was amazing.
Yeah, well, I wasn't born yet. This was when she was in college.
Oh, okay.
So it's just stories that she used to tell me of, like, one time her and her friend Beverly went to, like, some random ass Shoney's. Stephanie, Shoney's is a breakfast brunch kind of southern.
It's like a Tim Hortons.
Okay.
How dare you? Nothing's like Tim Hortons.
Oh, come on. Jesus. Every time I use this comparison, Canadians get angry at me. It's just, it happens to be comparable.
How dare you? So I had to explain what a Shoney's is real quick. But I mean, anybody from like that area knows, like, oh yeah, it's a Shoney's because Scott Steiner just opened up one in Ackworth, Georgia, for whatever reason.
He did.
And so this big tour bus comes out, and out pops like Ric Flair, Arn Anderson. It was basically like the Horsemen of that era.
Yeah,
like their bus, and they all just pile in and eat at the Shoney's. My mom just happened to go up, and her friend Beverly was like, "You should go up and talk to Ric Flair. You're never going to have this moment again. Like, what's the worst thing he could say to you?" And my mom's like, "Well, I mean, aside from chopping me, I don't know, but we'll see." So after he finishes, my mom basically just stalks Ric Flair and goes up and says, "Hi, like, I know, like, you're Ric Flair. I'd love to meet you. This is an absolute honor, and I want a quick hi." And it's like, "Okay, sure, just no problem. What's your name?" And so just puts on like the Ric Flair like character in a second, and then they leave, and that's my mom's Ric Flair story.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I've only had a few interactions with people. Like I was at the Hartsfield Jackson a couple years ago, going to Florida for something, and I see this guy who kind of looks like Ted DiBiase.
Yeah.
Walk up, and I was like, "There's no way! Oh, like of all things, there's no way that's Ted DiBiase." And then he turns the corner, and and he's wearing his WWE varsity jacket, and I was like, "Oh shit, that is Ted DiBiase." So I go up to him, and he's in line at the Chick-fil-A, like getting something. And, like, I wait for him to order his food, and I'm like, "Mr. DiBiase, I know you get this a lot.
I have a story about that guy."
You're totally... Cool. I can't wait to hear it. And I know, like, you get this a lot in your public figure, and you don't want people bothering you when you're just trying to eat breakfast. But can I just have, like, a quick handshake from, like, the greatest heel of the 80s? He's like, oh, that's not going to cost you anything, good sir. And then, like, he just shakes my hand. And I was like, yes, day made. I didn't want a picture, didn't want an autograph. I'm just like, I want to just shake, like, the greatest heel of the 80s hand real quick. So that's...
I asked him a tater tot.
You gave him a tater tot?
I didn't know who he was, and he was in the basement of my work because apparently he was doing a signing, but I didn't know. And my manager walks up and is like, "Hey, Steph, this is Ted," and I'm like, "Hey, Ted, want a tater tot?" And then he was like, "I don't want a tater tot," but then he talked to me for a bit, and I was just like, "Tater tots," and I didn't know that was who that was, but now that you're saying this out loud, I'm like, I do have a story about this gentleman.
My brother met him when he was doing, because he's an ordained reverend and pastor and has his own ministry. Yeah. And he was doing a speaking at my brother's school, and me and my friend Marcus skipped, because my brother's in middle school. We skipped the last period because I was in high school at the time, and we skipped last period to go to the middle school to see Ted DiBiase Tark. Again, I don't know if you understand this, Brett. Do you go by Brett or do you go by G, Brett?
I go by Brett. The G stands for Google because otherwise you wouldn't be able to find me when you search for who I am.
Oh, that's pretty great. Nice.
It is actually. It does stand for my first name as well, but
I go by my middle name, so I mean it happens.
Yeah.
I just go by the most common name I could possibly think of any girl born in the 80s or 90s. And
Stephanie.
I often then get confused with another Stephanie Cooke who also does R&B. And I get a lot of tweets that are like, jam into some slow jams by Hello Cookie. And I'm like, thanks. #blessed.
I think that puts you in rare company because that's been the thing that's driven Warren Ellis crazy for years, right? That he has the same name as the bass player for Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds.
Oh my god, yeah. I mean, it's not the same level, but I do get some tweets about slow jams, and I'm like, I do what I can.
So I want to talk about the Kickstarter, but I really want to dive into you as a wrestling fan, if you don't mind, Brett.
Because we wouldn't know that at this point.
We wouldn't know that at this point. I know. I just so Brett, I want to give our listeners a quick throwback to C2E2 of this last year, where we met by chance at Robert Wilson IV's table.
That's right.
And basically just sort of, hey. Robert's like, oh, he's into wrestling. And I was like, oh, I'm kind of into wrestling too. I'm like, I kind of keep it cool so people don't think I'm like a supermark and just lay out my supermark powers. My supermark powers have helped certain situations.
Yeah. I mean, I'm here. I've gotten as far in comics as I have because I know a lot about wrestling. It is not because I know a lot about comics.
It helped me last year with Seth Rollins at AwesomeCon when he was doing a Q&A, and people had some really, I'm going to say, mundane questions like, what's your CrossFit schedule like? And I'm like, first of all, you don't ask CrossFit Jesus about his CrossFit schedule. And so my question was, how does it feel to be the first WWE champion that's actually younger than WrestleMania?
And he liked that
caught him off guard because he didn't realize it.
Right.
And so he's like, I can't be the first. He was like, but they gave that to Lesnar. I was like, yeah, Lesnar was 25, but WrestleMania had just turned 18.
Yeah.
And he's like, what? Are you serious? I'm the first one? I'm like, you're the first one younger than WrestleMania. And he's like, I don't even know how to process right now. Holy crap. So... That got me good in with him for a hot second.
It comes into play a lot more than you would think. I've probably had more conversations about pro wrestling than anything else in my life, and that's not an exaggeration.
I know. So let's talk about the Kickstarter because there's a lot going on in it. You have a lot of incentives, and you had a really good first day.
We had a good first day. We've had a good first 5 days. We're doing pretty well. We've managed to avoid a weekend slump because we launched last Thursday and we actually were strong through the weekend, which is pretty rare. And yeah, honestly, man, like what this conversation we're having right now, this is like is an excellent example of why this book is, or why we're trying to make this book exist. And I would like to shout out just right off the bat to my partner in crime on this, Lauren Sankovic, who used to edit for Marvel, and that's how a lot of people in the business know her. And she also edits for Team Milkfed, who, if you're not familiar, is kind of Matt Fraction and Kelly Sue DeConnick's, personal publishing imprint, and they're kind of a big deal. And Lauren has been paramount to this project. I mean, it is a 50-50 partnership in every possible way. And I couldn't have gotten anywhere close. This would be a short comic by myself and Jake Stanley if it weren't for Lauren. And it would be good and I would love it, but it wouldn't be what it is. And what it is, like I say, it's kind of this conversation we're having right now, because we want it to be something that I can hand to a person like Lan, and he'll look through it and be like, oh my God, this is amazing from cover to cover. This is kinetic, wonderful, like open thing about why wrestling is interesting and why it matters and why it's problematic and all of those things. And then you can also hand it to someone like Stephanie, who's like, what the hell, why wrestling?
Hey, I offered Ted DiBiase a tater tot.
That is not how you say his name.
DiBiase is pretty close.
I feel like I'm right, you're wrong.
I like your conviction. Yeah, I think that honestly, though, it's like you could put this in the hands of a novice and hopefully answer that question. I think the log line for this for forever has been when people ask why wrestling, you can hand them From Parts Unknown, and it'll answer that question. So
yeah, because I wrote an op-ed last year about comparing the narrative to comics and wrestling, and why wrestling it seems to be on the rise, but in still like some sort of subculture kind of way. How I don't think we'll ever get as big as the rock and roll era, the rock and wrestling era, much less the Attitude Era. I don't think in this day and age there will ever be a bigger star, especially how things are going now, than Austin or The Rock.
Yeah.
Because Rock has, transcended. He's a common name.
The Rock is basically like the Meryl Streep of wrestling.
I mean, yes, yeah. I mean, that's a pretty apt comparison, I think. And honestly, there are people. I mean, like there are young people now who are fans of The Rock because he's an actor, who have no interaction with his wrestling career at all.
Or his role in The Scorpion King.
Right, or like
his greatest film.
I mean, he made his acting debut on Enterprise. He was a Klingon warrior.
That's true. You gotta really be a nerd to know that shit.
My friend, as a sidebar, also has a Rock story in which she grew up in Florida. And
get him a tater tot?
No, he lived next door to her best friend, and one day he like popped his head over and was like, "Do you guys want turkey burgers?" And they were all like, "No." And she was like, definitely like, "Yes, I do want a turkey burger. I do smell what The Rock is cooking, and I want it."
She literally smelled what The Rock was cooking.
Yes, literally.
And it was turkey burger.
These are like all of my stories with wrestlers involve food, apparently.
You are Liz Lemon. But I do think it's sort of weird. People who consider Dwayne Johnson like this action star have no idea of like him talking about his penis and
a lot.
Strudels a lot.
And strudels.
A lot. He talked about his penis a lot on TV, on live TV.
Yeah.
And they're completely different personas of Dwayne Johnson.
Certainly, yeah.
But
they don't resemble each other at all that much.
No, but you also have Dwayne basically, The Rock calling everybody a jabroni and hitting on Lillian Garcia and basically, indecent proposing, everybody just like, going back to, even when he would just pull like that random, like, well, it was a plant, but what's your favorite food? Pancakes? Where are you from? Chicago? Why don't you pancake yourself back to Chicago?
Yeah.
but he would do that every week.
And I think that his stardom is an interesting kind of it's an interesting sort of real world equivalent of what of that sort of transcendent quality of wrestling in that and I think that he has become sort of a real life action hero or a real life superhero, as it were.
Most definitely.
And I think that is why, I mean, honestly, like, and it's probably pretty evident to people if you say, oh, I like comic books and I also like wrestling, but there's a lot of crossover between the narratives, especially in superhero storytelling and myth cycle kind of storytelling, and this sort of Campbellian struggle between good and evil, and how those are sort of these forces of nature that are constantly at war with one another, and that plays out obviously in superhero comics. It plays out obviously as well in professional wrestling, and I think that that's why, in that environment of going to comic conventions like I have been for years, and being in the industry like Lauren has been for years, why we constantly found ourselves in those conversations, because they're kind of the conversations we've been having since we were kids about comics. We end up having them about wrestling as well. There's this really interesting, what I find so interesting about it is that as Americans, we don't really have a lot of mythology. We sort of took the country that we live in by force, and we sort of live in it with a lot of borrowed mythologies that we've brought over here, that we've taken from the Native Americans or anything like that. But the things that are fascinating are these things that we've sort of mythologized, that we've created ourselves, and that's things like jazz music, blues music, comic books, superhero comic books, and professional wrestling. And I think there's a uniquely unifying sort of thing there where we all are trying to, just that human thing where we constantly as societies build mythologies, even as we advance more and more toward, in a religious society, we're still mythologizing things and still mythologizing stories. And I find that really fascinating. Also, The Rock talks about his penis a lot.
Stephanie, still with us. Where are we at, Stephanie? Where are we at?
I'm just going to say things. So, okay, you've got cool stuff for rewards.
Rewards, yeah.
You got like some really cool things, like from Chip Zdarsky, writer of things and drawer of stuff.
Yes. And a lot of that stuff is all gone now, so it's fun to talk about it on this podcast where we're promoting it. But
but they can see the cool watercolors. They
can, and Chip very generously donated 3 watercolors of 3 wrestlers that he asked for. It was very funny. He asked Lauren for a list of wrestlers that he could draw, and she asked me, and he was looking for 3, and I sent back a list of 20. And was like, if he drew any of these, I would be very happy. And he chose Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Rick Rude, and Bobby the Brain Heenan, and they are just absolutely wonderful. And they went.
Heenan is so great.
It's incredible, and I will probably commission him to do another personally for my own personal collection someday, because I wanted it very, very badly. And Kickstarter has some rules about donating to your own project. So,
what were you looking for?
I really like the Heenan quite a bit, and I think that but that is part of what's nice about this, is that over the years, Lauren and I have both cultivated so many quality relationships in comics, and even when there are people who aren't wrestling fans, they were more than happy to jump to help us out. We had an original sketch option from Taki Soma, who draws Bitch Planet. We had donated books from Sam Humphries and Brian Michael Bendis, some people, just lightweights, just comics lightweights. So people got a few books out. But we also still have a lot of really great stuff, especially if you're looking for original art. There's, Phil Hester. I'm sorry, the Phil Hester thing is gone, but Ed Luce, who draws Lovable Oath, is a contributor to the project.
Love Ed. Love Ed.
there's 7 of at the timing of this, when we're recording this, at least there's 7 original sketches from Ed left. There's an original 8.5 by 11 like painting by Jim Mafood of any wrestler you want. There's even a From Parts Unknown championship belt. So if you always wanted to have a championship belt without ever having to get inside a wrestling ring, we have that available for you. And I can tell you too that as we progress through the project, as we hit certain goals and as we push towards certain goals, a lot of new stuff is going to be released as well. And what we found out of the gate is that people are really loving this original art and loving the opportunity to see some of these heroes that they've had for such a long time be lovingly rendered by some very talented people. And we're going to have a lot more of that coming down the line. There will be some sketch levels from people such as Megan Hutchison, who's a comic artist that I love very dearly, and we've reached out to Brent Schoonover about doing a few pieces. Brilliant illustrator. And then also, right now, just at the $45 level, you get beautiful prints of Sami Zayn and Shinsuke Nakamura from my buddy Jake Stanley, who's also got his wonderful, amazing art in the project as well. And we're actually going to be releasing some updates in the next week that show some of that interior as well, some of the interior pages that we're all working on. So
I didn't even notice the Nakamura print.
Oh, it's wonderful. It's absolutely beautiful. And Jake did it kind of when Nakamura signed with the WWE, and he kind of sat on it for a little while. And then after that match at NXT TakeOver Dallas, he added Sammy to it. And that's if you come in at $45, you get 2 absolutely stunning prints from Jake. You get a From Parts Unknown sticker, you get a digital copy of the book, and you get a physical copy of the book. And for just $25, you get a physical copy of this book. And guys, I promise it's really it's going to be stunning. I mean,
name some other creators that you actually have like inside of it. I know Jason Latour because I know Jason, and it's funny because he just had a thing about name the best Southern superhero, and I just tweeted him Dusty Rhodes. Next question. He goes, all right, done. So,
I mean, that's absolutely fair. When Dusty Rhodes passed away, I actually wore an American flag armband around my hand for a week. So I took that pretty tough, and I would agree with you on that greatest Southern superhero.
Because he died around my birthday, and I wrote up his eulogy piece for comic book, but I also did his 5 best promos. And I tell you, if you've never heard Dusty's Hard Times promo, it is a work of genius.
That one is very good.
It's one, like, legendary promos are really hard to come by these days, but
yeah, because everything's scripted for the boys, and they don't really get to stretch their legs and just say what they mean anymore,
right.
And
right. Very few people can, but Dusty's Hard Times against Ric Flair is kind of just genius ring psychology as well.
I'll tell you my favorite one, and you have to find an uncut, unedited version of Starrcade '88, but he cuts a promo on the Road Warriors after they've spiked his eye, and I can quote it.
Oh yes, please do. This is my favorite stuff.
I don't have a great Dusty impression, but he's basically saying if Sting is his partner, if he has to carry me on his back, damn it. If he has to drag me in a wagon, I'm breathing. He just yells, I'm breathing. You understand what I'm saying? I'm breathing. So he's basically saying, you should have killed me, because
you should have killed me when you had the chance.
Anything short of killing me isn't going to get the job done, and it is quite possibly the greatest Dusty promo, and it's not as easy to find as Hard Times, but damn, it's worth it if you can find it. But speaking of wrestlers, we actually have a few in the book as well, or a couple in the book, or 3 in the book. We have Akasa Christensen, who is who runs Femzaguri.com, which is an absolutely phenomenal wrestling website. And she herself is also a wrestler and a writer. We have my buddy Jocephus Hudson, who wrestled for Resistance Pro Wrestling in Chicago for a long time, and he's doing an essay inside the book as well. And then I think that the name that most people probably recognize the most would be the fallen angel Christopher Daniels.
Best moonsault ever.
And best moonsault ever. And current Ring of Honor wrestler and also trainer. And Chris is doing a really incredible kind of man on the streets, behind the scenes, thing about what it was like being trained growing up, and then what it's like being a trainer now. But we also got we pulled in all of our friends and from all kinds of places that doing all kinds of great stuff. And we've got Joe Keatinge, who, is the creator of books like Shudder and Ringside, a huge wrestling fan. The Soska Sisters, who are just gory as hell filmmakers who made American Mary, and they made See No Evil 2, which is actually a WWE Studios film. The cover is done by Rob Schamberger, who, if you're a wrestling fan, have probably salivated over his paintings a dozen times or more.
I queued up the Nakamura shirt next paycheck.
Yeah, same. We've got just a lot of Jenn Woodall and our friend Dani are doing an illustration. Yeah, we know Dani, and
I love Dani.
She's doing. She and Jen are doing an illustrated timeline of wrestling fashion, which is actually the thing I think I'm most excited about in the entire book, because Dani is a dogged researcher, and
she's so great.
She came to me and asked for a list of my favorite, just sort of like basically directions to go in, and just her. I think it was fun to watch her reaction to seeing some of the elaborate and amazing costumes that wrestling has given us over the years.
She's been talking to me about this project for like a year.
Yeah, well, and it's a year in the making. I mean, I'd like to point out that, to anyone listening, if you're considering backing this, Lauren and I from Jump Street, it was important to us to make sure that everybody in this book was paid fairly, and was paid the wage that they deserve to work on anything of this caliber. And the reason we're here at Kickstarter is, we're not publishers, we're not independently wealthy. We can't bankroll this ourselves, but we have a lot of really amazing people that are really talented people that are taking time out of their busy schedules, and they do great things already, and they really want to do this book. And the way that gets done is with everyone's help, because, we weren't going to put out something that we wouldn't be proud to have on our bookshelf, that we wouldn't be proud to give to our friends, that we wouldn't be proud to take to conventions. And we were never going to ask one single person on this book to work for free. And I can tell you that other than people who refused to let us pay them, no one on From Parts Unknown will work for free. And that is very important to both of us. So, and that's a lot of what, we're looking for $60,000 for the Kickstarter, and a lot of that cost is going back to the creators, because we are trying to pay people the wage that they deserve. And this stuff doesn't get done easily, and it doesn't get done quick unless you really put the money behind it. So that's what we're trying to do, because we want to deliver a really beautiful product, and we want to deliver it quickly, and we want to deliver it in perfect, or hopefully perfect condition, the U.S. Postal Service notwithstanding. But we've got a lot of really great people involved in it, and I'm really excited about what I'm seeing coming through already, and the level of excitement has been just through the roof. So, and The Rock still talks a lot about his penis.
Well, I mean, you kind of have to at that point. So, Steph, what have you learned? What's the most important thing that you've learned about wrestling?
That it brings people together?
Yeah, it's a sport for people. I don't know.
Is your brain just leaking from your nose right now? Just trying to...
I'm actually excited, because Dani has talked to me about this project for a long time, and Dani's one of my best friends, and I am excited to see the costumes and the evolution of it, because she's so passionate about it, and she's not a wrestling fan either, but she puts her heart and soul into all of these things. And I think knowing that on at least one specific story, the dedication level that's there, and knowing like Lauren and Joe and a few of the other people involved with this, like my knowledge of wrestling aside, it sounds like a really cool project. I'm still looking at like this list of names.
Oh yeah, do two more names, I guess 4 more to see if we can figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm loving this.
Okay, Haystack Calhoun or Crash Carmichael.
Which one do you think is fake?
I feel like Haystack Calhoun is fake.
Wrong.
Oh, god damn it!
Haystack Calhoun is one of the great giants of all time. He was one of the attraction wrestlers. They used to have these guys back in the territory days. They would go from town to town, and they would be just be giants. And they, Haystacks Calhoun, I think landed like 550, 600 pounds.
He was billed something like that. Something ridiculous, colossal amounts.
Okay, here, let's see. I've got this one's from Tony Crank. He says, Erwin R. Shyster, aka the IRS, the wrestling accountant, or Otto C. DeVille, the wrestler who suffered from OCD. You guys are monsters.
Stephanie, which one is fake?
Which one's fake? I feel like Otto C. DeVille.
Yay!
Ding, ding. I got one. I feel like the wrestling accountant feels like an actual thing that would have happened.
Erwin R. Shyster was tag team partners with Ted DiBiase in the 80s, forming Money Incorporated.
That tater tot's coming back. Karma. Yes.
Erwin R. Shyster is from one of the best professional wrestlers I've ever seen. A guy named Mike Rotunda. He was a Southern wrestler. He's from Oklahoma, if I'm not mistaken, Oklahoma or Texas, and wrestled in the WCW as Mike Rotunda in the Varsity Club with Rick Steiner and with Kevin Sullivan. Great wrestler. Left a great legacy behind. His 2 sons wrestle in the WWE now, Bray Wyatt and Bo Dallas. And when Vince McMahon got a hold of him, he turned him into a damn wrestling accountant.
Oh my god,
it's so great.
Can we just tell me between these two that? Okay, so Norman the Creep or the Dingo Warrior? Please tell me the Dingo Warrior is the real one here, because that's amazing.
You would be correct, because that was Ultimate Warrior's first name.
Because, I have, seriously, you guys sent in, 50, and this one is the one that I was like, please be a real thing. Dingo Warrior needs to be a thing.
Dingo Warrior.
Dingo Warrior is a real thing.
Oh, yes.
I will show you a promo later, I promise.
Okay.
So... but yeah, Brett, any last words from Parts Unknown?
Yeah, well, I'm going to give you I'm sure you'll post it in the show notes, but just so you know, it's if you go to Kickstarter.com, you can easily search from Parts Unknown. The actual address is Kickstarter.com/projects/G-Brett-Williams/from-parts-unknown. And we are currently the featured comics project on Kickstarter.
Nice.
So that makes it a little bit easier to find. We've had coverage from Comics Alliance and from Doom Rocket. We're working on getting into some other websites and onto some other podcasts as well.
I passed you on to my editor. Thank
you.
I did pass you on to the editor in case of the.
So we don't want any conflicts of interest here.
Right.
I guess this is a good time to
I guess
reveal that Lan is also a contributor to From Parts Unknown.
Yes.
So
because
full disclosure.
Yeah, it was one of those things where it really just kind of worked, and I'm not going to give out the details for it yet because we're still piecing it together.
Yeah.
But I really wanted to contribute to this because I love wrestling and I love comics, and I feel like this should be the amount of money that you have should be more. I feel like the correlation in the Venn diagram that is comics and wrestling should pour more money into this.
I would love for that to happen.
So hopefully we can hopefully for the listeners out there who are super marks like ourselves and just contribute and hope to see this made. And hopefully Stephanie will get a copy, and she can learn, what's the big deal?
And I sincerely hope that Stephanie and others like her who are interested at least in, who are at least interested in creative endeavors and creative storytelling will get this book and they'll learn a lot about it from there.
Awesome. So, all right. Thank you so much, Brett.
Thank you, guys.